Hello, welcome to Power Hour. I'm Laura Rogers, and this is my weekly show that I do all about SharePoint and what we can do with SharePoint pretty much out of the box without having to get too custom. A little bit about me. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I've been one for 6 years or so. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I have been doing SharePoint for 12 years. Crazy. So I've been out for a couple of weeks, had to go to Hawaii, don't you hate it when that happens? And there was a SharePoint Saturday in Hawaii. They have it on Friday there, it was a lot of fun. I highly recommend you all go to that next year. And then I went and spoke at SP TechCon, the SharePoint Technology Conference. It was in Austin, and the next one is going to be in DC, I think I can't remember when, in the fall, August, September, something like that, October, November. I'll have to look that up. And today's topic is going to be the user profile service. So in the last Power Hour that we did, we were talking about Delve and just really what is Delve and the user experience and the About Me and My Analytics all kind of related to Delve. So as we were doing Delve, we delved into the user profiles, and there's a whole bunch more to talk about in user profiles than we had time for, basically, in our Delve session. So we're going to spend a whole hour talking about that. I've got another announcement real quick, guys. Joelle Farley has joined our team at IW Mentor as of last week. So, and she is in the chat window here. So you guys say hello to Joelle. And I'm going to figure out how to get Skype, to have her face in this XSplit broadcaster software that I use to be able to have us both do presentations. It's just something that I never did figure out ever since the Google Hangouts went off the air and don't exist anymore, really. That's how we used to do it before with the whole team with Power Hour. So we're going to figure out the new one so that we can chat and both do presentations and all that fun stuff. Yep, there she is in the chat window. Say hello to Joelle. So that's my really big announcement that I've been excited about and couldn't wait to tell y'all about. So we've got a lot to do, and I'm so happy to have her on my team. Okay, so user profile service. What is it? And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through the user profile service. And a lot of this pertains to both on-premises and Office 365. And we're not going to go into authentication and ADFS and directory synchronization and things like that. Nick Bertoli was actually over here at my house for a couple months ago for a few Power Hours ago, and he went all into authentication and all those topics. So that's not something I'm going to go into the nitty gritty of. I'm going to go into pretty much the user profile service and that screen, and what you see in the screen that you see in the user profile service in Office 365 is almost identical to what you see on premises. That hasn't really changed. So, it could apply to all of you. And I am going to keep an eye on the chat window. I got my Surface in my lap so that since for some reason Slack is not working on my computer, and I'll be peeking down at that every now and then to get some feedback. So the fun part about, oh, there you go, Slack actually came back online. It just popped up in a window. Awesome. Okay, so Slack is back online. Just as I said that, it's like it heard me. The fun part about Power Hour and why it's live is that we get to have these lively conversations during the presentation. So I'm streaming live, and we also have this conversation going on so that you guys can ask questions and give feedback the entire time, and chat with each other, and just, it's usually a lot of fun. So welcome. We've got a few new people in here, so welcome to you, and thanks for coming. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let me put this other computer down. Okay, here we go. We start off in the Office 365 Admin Center. I'll just show you where I went, and I expanded the part at the bottom that says Admin Centers. And then, of course, SharePoint is behind my head there in the little screen sharing, but it says SharePoint. No, there's SharePoint right there. So I clicked on SharePoint, and that's how I got over here. And so now this is where you can go to the user profiles. So I'll click on user profiles, and we're going to go into a lot of the settings in here, and we're going to go into how it applies to things that you're doing just in your SharePoint sites. Keep in mind that when you're on premises, there are a lot of timer jobs involved and a lot of the things that go on behind the scenes with the user profile service. But when you're on premises, you actually have control over that. So if I was on an on-prem server, I could just, try out something and then go manually, like trigger, say, like the, one of these timer jobs to run, just to immediately see the effects of what I just did. But in Office 365, you don't have the ability to go just manually trigger a timer job. You just have to wait. So there are some things that I'll be talking about that, you're not necessarily going to see the immediate effect of it. But I'm going to go, first of all, my credentials. So I wrote let's see, you guys, and if you have this old book, it's let me flip back to the other scene real quick. It's got a couple of books here. The Professional SharePoint 2010 Administration by Todd Clint, Shane Young, Steve Carvajal. Does anybody have this? This is an oldie but goodie. I wrote a couple of chapters in here, but I wrote the chapter 17 on social computing and SharePoint 2010, and that has the very first section in here is managing the user profile service. And then in my the beginning SharePoint 2013 Building Business Solutions book that we wrote, of course, this is not a server admin type of book, but I opened this up. I was like, well, maybe I wrote the social chapter in here. I don't remember, and so I'll just take a look at it and see if it looks familiar. And I open it up, and it's working with social features, and then I turn the first page and I see a giant screenshot where I put myself in the book. So I clearly wrote that chapter too. So me and user profile services go way back. All right. Oh, Sandy used to have that book. That's awesome. Okay. So we're going to go through a lot of these concepts and try to go kind of methodically through them so you'll understand what they are. And I know that Power Hour is, we're typically catering to end users and business users and not getting technical. But even if you're not the admin, even if you are a business user and you don't have access to this, this is still a good thing for you to understand that these settings exist, and therefore it's something that you could maybe talk to your admin about or see if some changes that you want could be made by them. At least you know what's in there to be able to ask about it. And I did a whole Power Hour about promoted sites right here, and one of the good examples that I had about managed promoted sites was back when I was a SharePoint server admin. And I was looking through these settings, and I, went to SharePoint admin training and everything. And I said to my boss, well, this manage promoted sites and the my site, or it was specifically the manage promoted sites feature looks really useful. Maybe we should put some promoted sites out here, and you can target them to audiences and things like that, and have the people, depending on what audience they're in, be able to see promoted sites that are targeted to them. And she said, well, the business hasn't asked for that. Well, the business doesn't know that it's there, right? So that's a lot of the concept behind why I'm going over this, because if you know it's there, then you'll know it's something that the admins do have control over. Okay. And I can say that because I used to be one. All right. So first I'm just going to do an overview of a lot of these concepts. There's a difference between profiles and properties. User properties. Oh, wait, let me go ahead and share my screen again. User properties are where it says manage user properties. Let me go ahead and actually, I'm going to zoom in even more, even though I changed my resolution. I'm going to zoom in even more so that we can get maybe a little bigger. There we go. That's huge. Okay. User profiles is over here. And it's being weird. Hold on a second. There we go. User properties. Okay, you can see that, right? Okay, manage user properties. User properties are people's name, full name, first name, last name, department, office, all those different fields, basically. Those are all the fields, columns having to do with all the information about all the users. And there are a ton of out-of-the-box ones. You might have noticed things like skills, about me. There are a lot of really detailed ones like office and cell number and home number and work number and work email. Those are all user properties. User profiles are all the actual people. Those are the people's names in your organization. Those are the user profiles that get synchronized over from whatever directory you're using. In Office 365, when you just sign up for Office 365 and you just start putting people in just the users section in the Office 365 admin, this part is just already set up. You don't have to do anything extra to make those users profiles be in the user profile service. When you're on premises, you have a good bit of setup that you have to do to connect your Active Directory to SharePoint. There's also, now, then that's just out of the box, just going straight into Office 365. Of course, when you have your Active Directory on premises, then you might do ADFS or Azure Active Directory, and those are, again, those are all things that I'm not necessarily covering today. But the user profiles are the profiles themselves. Those are all the people and all the information about the people that gets pulled in from wherever your directory is. I'm not going to go into subtypes right now, but manage audiences. Audiences is one of those things that I think we did a whole power hour about audiences as well. Audiences are dynamic groups of people. Audiences are, you could say, like, define an audience by saying anybody who has marketing as their department name or you do ands and ors, or marketing in their title, or they fall under this certain marketing director. Any of those conditions apply, they become part of the marketing audience. So you can just define all these conditions based on user properties and what groups they're in, who they report to, what groups they might be in, and the audiences dynamically populate with people. And so it's not something where you have to go add users to it. Audiences only in Office 365, that only gets compiled once a week though. So it's not going to be the fastest. If somebody joins the marketing department, they're not going to immediately be in the audience. Let's see. And then we've got, let me zoom back out here. I'm going to go more into those two now. Okay. Let's see if there are any questions. Okay. So I'm going to go into some of these a little bit more. My sites is, that's kind of the same thing. That's what we were talking about with Delve. A little background behind that. My sites was, all ever since SharePoint was invented, or at least in the past 10 years, everybody who has a user profile gets a My Site, and your My Site has historically been your own site collection. So every user, as soon as they click on My Site for the first time, they get their own site collection, and that's where your document library exists, and everybody has their own place where they can put their documents. And then you also had like a little home page on your My Site that showed your profile, your user profile, and that's what the About Me page is now in Delve. And then, but you also had, it was kind of a weird kludgy thing, because you had your profile, but then you also had the ability to go into your own site collection and not just see your list of documents, but be able to have create a blog post, a blog subsite. You could go add just other subsites just by creating subsites, just test sites, and go play around in there. You could add lists and libraries to your My Site. And so it was this whole site collection. Then the admins could control from the server side all the quotas that people would get for their personal site collection. Those have pretty much gone away in online. Now what used to be just your documents in your My Site that's your OneDrive. That's your OneDrive for business. And it's just a document library. So that's kind of where that came from. That's what that's always been. And again, I think if anybody can see or can search for other Power Hours I did about promoted sites and audiences. If you get a chance to, put that in the chat window for us. But I might, if not, I can go look for it later. Organization properties and profiles, those are going to be, I've never personally used those in the real world. Those are going to be where you have maybe the greater organization, and you have all these people's profiles, but then maybe you have a subset of people that are, say, consultants or something like that, and you want them to have different user properties. Then you can set up like this subset of people that's slightly different. You guys let me know if you have any feedback of anybody that's actually used that, but it's one of those kind of rare things that not that many people made the use of. Again, audiences is another thing that people didn't make the use of, but it's super useful. All right, so let's go delve into the user properties and go SharePoint. Okay, so this is going to be a giant list of properties, and as I said, there are a whole bunch of them. You have some basic stuff that you might have noticed before, like first name, last name, work phone, department, picture, username. I'm not going to list them all, but as you go down the list, you can see that they have some different information in these columns. So what does that mean? We have, first of all, you can change the order that they show in, and that used to affect the order that they'd show in when you're looking at somebody's profile in their profile online. I'm not sure if that affects it in Delve though, off the top of my head. Maybe we can play around with some of this stuff. And then it says what kind of property it is, like a string versus a people field here versus HTML. So you'll notice when you go to fill out your about me information, it's like a just giant freeform multi-line text field, and it's you can use HTML. So that's the about me field. So again, you can see that they're all just different field types, just when you're creating columns in a SharePoint list. And then mapped attribute is going to be when you're on premises, you're actually going to see the names of all of the attributes in Active Directory that each one of these attributes is mapped to. So like online user principal name is pretty much the only one that's showing in here because, again, this is online. When you're on premises, you can do some cool stuff. So you can actually have certain fields in Active Directory, user properties, and even custom user properties where you have maybe a certain division of your company or a certain branch or something that isn't just out of the box in SharePoint, and you can have those in Active Directory and actually create new properties and create the mapping between Active Directory and SharePoint so that even those custom properties could be part of what you see in SharePoint and what you use in SharePoint. I'll go ahead and show you what a new property looks like and some of these other things, and I'm just really just gonna kind of click here and explain things as I go. Multi-value is if you can have more than one item listed in there. So member of, you can be a member of more than one thing. Ask me about can be more than one thing. And then alias is, you know what? I'm not sure. Alias, I guess, is just another use of, that person. So like work email identifies that person, and so does their username that's unique to that person. And name is like a first name, last name. But so when I'm looking at all these, those remind me of kind of like all the options that you see when you're using a people field, like in a SharePoint Designer workflow, all the things that are specific to that person that you're working with. Okay, I'm gonna go to create a new property. And this is just my demo tenant, so I can screw it up, it doesn't matter. So I might, just mess with stuff and go create properties and just, who cares? All right, I'm gonna do, I'll just do a new property and call it branch. And display name can also be branch. That's something that doesn't exist out of the box. Edit languages, let's see what that one does. I have never personally worked in a multilingual SharePoint environment, so I don't have experience with actually putting multiple languages in here. I'm not going to do that right now, but you can see that English is the default language in this particular one, but I could have other languages and put language specific text, which is nice to know, right? Is anybody in here deal with multiple languages? Let's see, M. Moman says, can we change the multi-value for a property? Change it to be multi-value from not, or change it to multi-value from non-multi-value, or vice versa? Is that what you're asking? Let's see, this can be a string. Okay, so configure a term set to be used for this property. This is really useful. So before I check that box, let's just kind of look at what some of these options look like. Because as I change things here, I'm going to have different things that are available to do. So I can do a description. What Contoso branch is this person? Okay. And then policy settings. All right, so when we were looking at Delve, Moman, to answer your question, he said, can we change the multi-value for a property? We have a few employees reporting to 2 managers. That is not going to work because it expects you to just have 1 manager, because it builds its whole org structure based on everybody's manager property, and it builds those trees automatically, and it has a ton of automatic things built into search, built into profiles, all based on the manager, that specific property having 1 manager. So yeah, that's not normal. So no, you can't really have multiple managers. I can imagine that maybe you could create like a secondary manager field and have that be a person field, just off the top of my head, but I've never tried that. Okay, so policy settings. This means that this affects how it's going to appear over in SharePoint. First of all, is it required? Do we have to have a value in this field? Of course, we'll just say optional. And then privacy settings. So in previous versions of SharePoint, we had me, my team, my colleagues, and everyone. I think those were the 4. They've narrowed it down. I think that some of those, people didn't need all those different options, right? So now it's just only me and everyone. So you'll notice that when you're in Delve, and let me kind of show you where you're going to see this. I'll go ahead and go to my About Me profile here and show you exactly what I'm talking about as to where you're going to see this show up. So, and when any user goes to update their profile, when they are editing some of these options in here, like I'll go to my contact information, like add mobile. See this little icon? That's an everyone icon. So this is set to everyone, and it doesn't give you an option to let you change it from everyone. And if I choose home phone, this is what lets the end user select, if they add their home phone into their profile, whether they want everyone to see it or just themselves. So everyone versus only me is where you see this. And then that's what this setting is right here. So default privacy setting. So I can set branch to everyone. And then this is where it says user can override. And that is where it lets them have the drop down box or not. So I'll just say no, I'm not going to allow them to override it. Nuha says, once a change in the profile like org chart is updated, how long does it take into effect? Ooh, that's a good question. It depends on where you're going to see it too, because, and what I'll talk about too is the user profile versus the user information list over in the SharePoint, like in each site collection. So I'm not really sure definitively of an answer. Some of these other, Tony's typing something. We'll see what Tony has to say about that. Usually it's, and remember the other day when I was doing a demo for you guys, and I had changed my, like my demo persons, I had changed their name in SharePoint to my name, but then there were still some places we were seeing their name versus my name. And then I remember I went into like several different places and I had to change my profile twice. So yeah, it depends on where you're seeing it, Nuha. If you're seeing it in a site collection, if you're seeing it on about me, if you're seeing it in your when they look at their name at the top right. So unfortunately, there are several different places and several different ways it's timing, but Tony's still typing something. Okay, so that's the private setting and whether they can override. Okay, replicable is really important. What does this mean? Replicable means that if I make it replicable, and first of all, it's a one-way thing. You can only do it, you can check the box, and then you can't, if you uncheck the box, you're not going to get it back. So what this box does, replicable, is over in all of your site collections, you have a user info list, user information list, which is a hidden list. It just exists one time in each site collection. And that list also has fields, right? You can see information about users like their name, their about me, their some basic information like their department. It doesn't have every single user profile property. It only has the ones that are replicable. So replicable checkbox will push that property out to all the site collections, and it will exist as a new column in the user information list. I have done this once. I'll go ahead and click OK here. I had created a web part that was just an RSS feed web part, and I wanted it to show the weather in the current users, whatever zip code they happen to be in, because we were all over the place. And so I had to have their zip code. So I made the zip code property replicable so that it would exist in the site collections so that I could use that in my web part to be able to show them the right weather. Because zip code is not replicable by default. And so while I'm talking about this difference between the user profile properties and what you see in the site collections, I'll go ahead and go over to one of my sites here. So it's and I'll show you how you can get to this little hidden list. Tip of the day. You guys let me know if you've done this before. Probably you old school people have done it. Tony says he made a change in his AD yesterday, and it showed up today in Delve. So that's his experience with that. All right, hidden user information list. If I click on people and groups, it's going to default me to just whatever my first group is that's listed here. But this is actually my user information list in this site collection. So what I can do is I can change my membership group ID. I think it's a 1. It's either a 1 or a 0. I think it's 1. No, yeah, it's a 0. Sorry. I always get it wrong. I change it to a 0. So now it's not showing me everybody in a certain group. It's showing me absolutely everybody. It's not everybody in the company though. It's only everybody who's ever gone to this site collection. So as soon as a user goes to the site for the first time, then their name automatically gets put in here. So like, for example, back in InfoPath, back in the InfoPath days, I had written a blog post about how if you can't tap into the user profile service, or if you're not on the licensing level like Enterprise where you have a user profile service, here's how you can get to some user profile information just in this list, just in that site collection. But then one of the caveats was when you're a brand new user, you're not going to be in there yet. So it's just, you just have to like wait a minute and then it appears. All right, so that's your user information list. You can see it's got their name, about me, title, and department. And I can even go to a couple of different views in here. Oops, sorry. And then it's not showing me that much different information. It's showing me the title and department. And then at the root level of the site collection, I can do this. I can't do this on a subsite, but then I can actually go into list settings and create views. So it's kind of a little hacker thing that you can do. But when I go create a view of this list, See, it doesn't give me much to pick from, but this is a way that I can see exactly what all the fields are in there and be able to tell, you know, if you're troubleshooting something or if you want to see what's going on in there. I'll just call it Laura, and normally I'd make it a personal view. So you have Ask Me About, Accounts, whether they're a site admin, which is good to know sometimes, right? So that's really useful. Think about like web parts that you can create that would say whether, you know, whether the person's a site admin or who this site's site admin is. Office, picture, all kinds of fun stuff. So, so these are, again, just a smaller subset of user properties. But this is one way that I can see, so I can check in SharePoint, I can check their user profile by just like going and just doing a search for the person and clicking on just their regular About Me, their profile. And I can see that information is from the user profile service. But when I go into a site collection and look at this row about that person, that's going to tell me a lot more. See, this is going to tell me what's actually propagated out to the site. So that's why I asked you where you're seeing the wrong information, because on premises there's actually a separate timer job that runs that goes and pushes all that updated information out to all these lists. What I've done before when I was really troubleshooting something and synchronization was broken and the person's name wouldn't show up here, is I've just deleted the person out of the site collection before. That's kind of an extreme case where you delete them and then it recreates them. That's just the next time they go to that site collection, but you can do that. That will delete them from all their permissions to it and completely as if they never went to that site collection. Has anybody ever had to do that? That's pretty extreme again. All right, so again, user profile properties versus user information list properties. So I could go ahead and make this new property that I'm creating replicable, and that will push it out to the site collections. Do I want users to be able to edit values for this property? So that's going to be when they're going into their profile and they're typing that information. Branch, is that something like branch is the one that I'm creating right now? Is this field something that I want to control at the admin level and have our AD admins or SharePoint admins or whoever, Office 365 admins, in charge of putting everyone's branch in there? Or do we want to let the users go, you know, hit edit profile and be able to go edit their own branch? So that's up to you, you know, according to your own governance and your own processes, right? It's another whole ball of wax to determine, is anybody updating AD and who updates it and when do they update it and is there a process around it at all? And this is whether you want to show this when in the profile property section of the user's profile page. Is this something that you want to show prominently, like here? Let me go back to me. Let's see, About Me. Just click on that again. So do I want this to show prominently, like up here on their profile when people are looking at their profile? So that's something I can decide here. And do I want to show it on the edit details page? Of course, if you're allowing them to edit, then you think you'd want to show it there. To show updates to the property in the news feed. Nobody uses news feeds anymore, so we're not going to worry about that. But let's see, Stuart says, so I can use that as site admin field. I don't think that's anything to do with licensing, Stuart. I think that's just if you're the site collection admin. So like in this site collection, I've got, that's a great question. So let me look at that. So is site admin, I've got a yes next to company administrator. And let's go add another site collection admin. So that's a great question. I'll put Alex. No, I don't have an Alex in here. I thought I did. Well, I don't know who any of my little fake users are. What about Garth Fort? I always have a Garth Fort. Nah. Oh well. Let me see. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it's site collection administrators. Let me go. I'm gonna go look one more time and see who these people are. Deborah. I'll just put Deborah in there. There we go. Deborah. Deborah, congratulations, administrative assistant. You're now a site collection administrator. Okay. Now I got to go back to my little hidden user information list. Quickly go back to my LoRa view and refresh it. And we'll see if Deborah has, yep, so she is site admin. So people that are just full control on the site is not necessarily a site admin. It's site collection admins that where you're going to see that. All right. So good to know, right? Okay. So back to, I'm still just adding a user profile property. And as I'm adding this new user profile property, I'm just showing you in SharePoint where that applies and where you're going to see a difference. Indexed or not, property mapping. We're not doing property mapping. This is in the cloud. And SharePoint came out with the ability to do two directional. I think SharePoint 2010 and 2013 have this, where you could theoretically have people give them the ability to edit properties themselves in their profile and actually have the sync pull some properties back the other way into Active Directory. And I know a lot of people did that, like with their profile pictures. Todd Clint wrote a whole blog post about how to do that so that users could edit their profile picture and it would actually get pulled back into AD so that their actual official AD profile picture was in there. In SharePoint 2016, I believe they removed the ability to do the two-way sync. Now it's just one way from your directory of people into SharePoint. It's into your user profile service. Okay, so so I'll go ahead and just click OK, and then I'm going to do another one because I'm going to show you some of the other different field types that you can have. Let's see, did I miss anything? Nope. Okay, it did it. All right, so now I've got branch. I'll go new property again. And this one I'm going to do division. I don't think that's an out-of-the-box one. Division. And okay, so I can have integers, binary, Boolean, a date versus a date with no year. Like a date with no year would be your birthday, right? Because you don't need to put your year. Everybody's profile has your birthday. And then date time. Is it an email field? Float, HTML, integer, a person field. And again, remember the manager, that's a person field. And then is it a multi-value string or a single string? And then a time zone. Ooh, so you can actually have a time zone drop down, unique identifier or URL. So what I'm going to do for this one is I'm going to do a user profile property. So I'm going to do just a string, but I'm going to make it so that you can have a term set. So this is a good, and division is a perfect example, right? So I might want to have a certain set of divisions that I want them to pick from, and that is controlled from my managed metadata. So this is where you would be able to configure that. And think about, and we'll go through this list and I'll show you a lot of the ones that are just out of the box ones that use managed metadata that you might not have noticed before. Stuart says Microsoft told me admins had to have an E3 versus E1. No, that doesn't make any sense. It's just a site collection admin. So like I have an E1 license in my business, just my SharePoint tenant, my Office 365 tenant. I have a couple of those that have E1, and having an E1 license doesn't prevent you from making somebody a site collection admin. So that has nothing to do with licensing, and that answer from Microsoft makes no sense. So maybe they were talking about something else, an admin of something else. Yeah, someone has to be a site collection admin. Yeah, every site collection has an admin. It puts, I've noticed that it puts this, I think it's called SharePoint Service Administrator. Now, just fairly recently in the past few months, when you create a new site collection, which means that which makes total logical sense that when you, in the user roles for people, when you make somebody a SharePoint admin, they would inherently then be able to be a site collection administrator of all the site collections. So it was kind of silly that it didn't do that before, but that's what that does. Just kind of a little off topic, but yeah. licensing questions. Fun. Okay, so here's where if I want to do a term set, I have to pick an existing term set. So the existing ones I have right now are department, job title, location. So right now when I look through my list of all the properties in here, these are going to be the ones that already have, that are associated with a term set. So let's go take this full circle and go over into my term set and actually create one for division. Term store management. Yeah, Nuha and Fausto and Tony and Stuart who are talking about the licensing. Yeah. They've got to be talking about Office 365 admin stuff with licensing, because that doesn't apply to site collections having an admin. Because even when WSS 3.0 was free and it was like the free version of SharePoint, you still have site collection admins. I mean, yeah. So, all right, people. Okay, here we go. Look, that's that out of the box little people thing that you're going to see just when you get, your SharePoint, you go into your manage metadata, this is already going to be here, and that is why that is already there, because that is tied with your user profiles. Joelle's in here. She works a ton with manage metadata, is an absolute guru at configuring and customizing a lot of this stuff. So she's like a master of going in here and like tweaking it and making it do magic. So I'm going to go division. Now, some companies might have division under department. So let's just pretend that's not the case in here, but because then you'd have to start rearranging things. But theoretically, so I went ahead and just created division just so I can have it to point to when I am in my user profile service. Now, I'm not sure how fast that's going to show up because I just created it. But while we're in here, just look at a few things. So as people's user profiles are filled in, this is where those values will end up. And you might have noticed in your environment a lot of keywords. Have you ever noticed your keywords just having weird things in them in your term store? We'll see like LSU and Northwind and paralegal, and these are coming from people's interests in their school and skills and things like that, and they're just getting dumped into keywords. So like here's a good example. So let's go, I'll create a new one and I'll call it school. And so this is how you can tweak this, and I've done this for a customer before in the real world. So I'll just create one. Oops, not a new department, but a new term set. I'll call it school. And that way it'll make more sense. And you can go through here and actually clean that up. So before I clean that up, I'll show you though how that kind of goes over to the user profiles. All right, so let me go ahead and just click cancel on this screen where I was creating a new division property, and go start all over so that I can see if those new term sets got populated in the drop down. New property. Okay, division. So you notice you don't have to pick a term set. So there's division, and then school is in there too already, so that was pretty fast. So I'll pick division. It makes more sense to actually have it in a particular term set, or else you end up with a big mess, right? So I'll say company division, where it's required, everyone, and I'll make that one replicable too. Oops, oh, sorry, that's so loud. And show it in the user profiles, etc. Okay, and then the one where I added school. So school already exists in here because it's in the user profile. I'll also show you how to rearrange these. So let's go see. Let's go see what it's called in my, when I'm filling out my profile here. Schools and education. So yeah, it's just, these are the schools I've gone to, and I got, oops, see, you can see it's using the term store because, that's where it's showing me the picker from, and I can add my hobbies. So if I'll say biking, and that will get added. If it's not already in the term store, it'll get added in the term store. So that's called schools and education. So it says school name. So let's go look for school name in here. There we go, schools. And I could have multiple schools. So let's go edit this existing property. All right, so I can't change this, system name of it, but the display name is schools. See, it's got a multi-value separator because the type is string multi-value, and then you're picking a term set. So it didn't have a particular term set, but now I'm picking one. So now from now on, when people put their school in their profile, it will go into the right term store. All the existing ones, though, I don't believe are going to automatically go into that part of the term store. So what you'd have to do is some cleanup. And let me go ahead and just like refresh this page. So this is what I've done. It takes a little bit of time. It's kind of tedious to go through and actually organize some of that stuff that gets dumped into messy places in this little system area. But you can start organizing some of these, like LSU here, and I can move it. People, and I can move it to school. Block users from using this keyword outside the context of his new term set destination. Sure. Okay, so it's blocked from being in here in keywords, but it put a copy of it in here. All right, and then if I go find, let's see, I don't know if I have any other school. I'll just pretend this is a school right here. Move keyword. I'm going to uncheck that. Oops, sorry, I got to put it in here. School. So when you uncheck it, it just completely moves it and doesn't leave like a little gray box on it. Joelle would probably have more insight into why or when you'd want to do one versus the other. We'll have to do another SharePoint Power Hour on managed metadata stuff, huh, Joelle? Now that I know how to do the Skype and the screen sharing and the face sharing and all that I finally figured out. All right, back to user properties. Okay, so now we also have the ability to organize some of this. So what are these little sections in here for? Well, the sections are going to be when you're over in the person's profile, these sections. See, contact information, about me, project, skills, schools, interests, and additional information. So about me is going to have, that seems like that's a little bit more personal information. So contact information, I would think, is where we don't really have like a organizational information in here, like departments, and I'm trying to think where that would need to go. Yeah, about me, it's like scrolling all over the place, right? I'll just put the division and all that in the about me section. So we've got basic information. Yeah, basic information is where department is, so that's where I'm going to move this one. Okay, so branch, oh my gosh, do I have to just move it up like that? Oh, they're grayed out. Okay, wait, oh, it's just taking a minute. I don't think I want to spend all afternoon doing that. Yeah, so you just have to keep clicking that. That's painful. You don't like that? That's awesome. That's really, that interface is very, very old school, isn't it? Let me go look at some of these, like this basic information section. Let me go look at the properties of it. Because you can create new sections in here too. So this is the default user profile subtype. Okay. Let's see if you can go into a property and after it's created, I don't think you can change what little section that it's in from inside the properties. No, yeah, there's nothing in there for that. But yeah, I'm not going to sit there and click the box over and over to move it up. But again, you can rearrange them. And then the new section is just to create a new category like basic information versus contact information and details. And subtypes. I have never done subtypes in the real world either. I'm not going to be the best person to give you a lot of details about what a subtype would be. To me, off the top of my head, it would be more like having different content types in a in a list. I'll click manage subtypes. Yeah, see, it doesn't have any subtypes. I'll call my subtype test. That's very creative. And, ooh, I can say whether it's the going to be the default. Oh, okay. So select subtypes. Yeah, I'm not sure. I got plenty to talk about to fill up the hour, and so I'm not going to waste too much time on the stuff that I don't know as much about. So here's manage user profiles. Now, you don't typically have to go into here to manage user profiles, but sometimes in situations where you have, let's see, let me pull up Deborah, where you have something going on where you have information in AD that didn't quite go over to SharePoint correctly and you need to troubleshoot it, like is the case, I think, with Nuha. This sometimes is a place you could go look, and you can actually edit it here. But again, this gets overwritten whenever the synchronization happens. So this isn't usually a place that you have to go edit things. So the synchronization pulls all the profiles over from AD or whatever your directory is, and it puts them all here. It's never going to show all the people's names listed. You always just have to go find one. So I'll go check out Deborah. Edit her profile. Like, I think there were 1 or 2 cases where I added something in AD and then didn't feel like waiting for the UPS synchronization, and then just went and edited the person's property real quick in here. Not necessarily a best practice. So again, these are all the properties but filled in for that person, and just you can actually go edit this list, and it even shows for all the ones that where they can change it to everyone and me. It lets you do that here as well. Good times. There's a lot of details in here, right? Okay, cancel. Oops, wow, I crashed it. Okay, you can add a new profile right here. Again, that's going to be a little weird. It's not something you would ever normally do. I don't think I've ever done it because, again, they have to come from AD. Let's go back to this screen. Audiences, I think I did a whole power hour about audiences, but that again, it's just that concept where, and I'll just create one real quick, not spend too much time on it, but you're going to use those user profile properties so it can dynamically change. So again, I'll just say like marketing and marketing people, owner, me, the admin. And then what you could say, satisfy all or any of the rules. So this is like everything's going to have an and between it, or everything's going to have an or between it. So I'll just say any of the rules. And I usually start off with a property. And I'll just say department contains marketing. And it even is going to prompt me for some managed metadata here, suggestions, because that's a metadata field. Okay. And it won't let me scroll down. I think I just clicked OK. All right, there we go. So again, this gets compiled once a week. So it's not necessarily going to be compiled immediately, but we're going to see, we can keep adding rules here, and then we'll see the people's names. When you click View Membership, it'll show who all fell under that marketing category, audience. All right, back to user profiles. Organization properties, let's go look at some of those. This is another one of those things that people don't necessarily make the most use of. This is going to have information about, think about situations where one company buys another company, you have divestitures, or you have companies being bought up, they're kind of the reverse of each other. But this is where you can have different organizations in one AD like this. Therefore, you can have different About Us, organization logo, former names, and information about that one organization, and then be able to add even subtypes of those. I can imagine really, really large corporations might have a lot of these. And then you can, again, have multiple, just like you have profile properties, which those are the fields, your organization properties are going to be information about all of your organizations. So I'll add a new organization to, I think the default is just Contoso in here. Blah, blah, blah. And then you can even have a team site for that one. So I'll just put it as I'll just put the home page. Display order 2, I don't know. Parent. So specify this organization's parent. So with a person, it's like a manager, but with an entire organization, you can have a parent organization. So this could be another way if you really wanted to be able to split out all your divisions, like, and have a lot of different properties for people in different divisions of your company. So I'll just pick root organization. Let me see, does it just not have one? Maybe it doesn't have one yet out of the box. Huh. Interesting. So I can just not have a parent. Well, it's required. So maybe I'll type Contoso, see what that does. And then organization leaders are going to be people. So good old Deborah gets to be one of those. Include direct reports. So you can get very granular. Has anybody dealt with organizations before? It's probably out of the scope of this. Yeah, see, it doesn't have a parent, so it can't do one. It's fine. No one cares. Okay, so that's the concept of organizations are like people, where they have properties and profiles and even subtypes. I'll just quickly touch on promoted sites. Promoted sites are actually really cool, and they're still relevant. So when you go to the SharePoint, go to the tiles, the waffle menu, and go to SharePoint, to your main SharePoint page that lists all the SharePoint sites. This is where your promoted links are going to show. Again, I did a whole power hour on that. So you can see that team sites and communities show there, and I can see them, team sites and communities. And I can add a new one. I'm going to do, let's see. I'm just going to make up a URL. .sharepoint.com/marketing. Like that. That could be their URL, marketing. Site is the name. Description, testing. I can even point to an image. If I've uploaded an image to SharePoint, I can put the URL of that image, and that would show as like the logo of that site. Give it an owner who's in charge of it, and then target audience. This is huge, and I keep talking about this all the time because I think this is a really powerful capability right here. But I can really like fine-tune the way that main list of all the SharePoint sites looks by targeting the featured links to audiences of people. Again, it's not going to show up immediately, but it would show up right here under featured links. But I'm not, oh wait, I'm not in the marketing audience, so I'm not going to see it anyway. And the marketing audience hasn't been compiled. Alrighty. I got to wrap it up now. Let me flip back over. So just real quick recap. We went into profiles and properties and the concepts of audiences. I didn't go into user permissions yet or policies. I'm going to delve into those a little bit later and see how that, and kind of take a look at that before. Again, I figured I'd spend a lot of time in just looking at profiles and properties. That was the main goal for this session. So we could potentially look at some of these other ones in a later session. And then I touched on the concept of audiences and promoted sites. So I'll go ahead and flip back here to screen. All right, in our IW Mentor channel in Slack, we have a ideas little channel. So I'll put a little like hashtag ideas. You can click on that link and it takes you to the ideas channel. And then in here, I did put a little survey. I think, unfortunately, when I create these little polls, it locks it after, I'm not sure what the amount of time is. I didn't want it to lock the poll down because I wanted to just leave it open for a week or so, but it locked it down and only like 5 people voted. So I might have to just figure out a different little polling bot to use that will let me leave it open and let me control that a little bit more. But the idea of the ideas channel is to put your topic ideas, and just informally you can just do the reactions like you have in Skype and in Slack when you hover over what somebody said, and you can do like the thumbs up or the smiley face. You can just informally like type ideas and do little reactions to other people's ideas. So for example, during the last Power Hour, I said, hey, how about maybe we can do user profiles? And then somebody, 4 people gave the thumbs up to user profiles. So that was the next topic. So again, really informal, but it's helpful to get your feedback in here as to what you'd like to talk about next. I think we're pretty much going to have Joelle do a managed metadata one pretty soon. Back when we were with another company we used to work for together, we had done 1 or 2 Power Hours on managed metadata, but there are a lot of new things going on and new considerations and, just kind of refreshes that we can do on a ton of these things. So thanks everybody for coming. And Stuart, I'll address your question in the chat and offline, but thanks everybody. And next week I am doing a webinar. So next week I'm doing a webinar on the same day that we usually have Power Hour, and I just wrote a blog post about it. It's with a company called Search Explained. Awesome company. They do training on SharePoint search. So if you want to really get a deep dive and really detailed, awesome training on SharePoint search, that's where you can go. And I'll go ahead and put the link to my webinar in the chat window. So that's instead of Power Hour on the 19th. And I recommend you all go sign up for that and head on over to that. And then I will see you, let's see, the week after that, I'm teaching my Power User class. So my SharePoint Power User class is a 4-day class that's just a deep dive into all kinds of Power User topics, like all the different site and list settings, site settings, permissions, navigation, how to manage a site, just a lot of information. Labs, you get your own SharePoint site. It's a lot of fun. So that is on my site, iwmentor.com, and I will be teaching that the next week, the 24th through 27th. So we won't have a Power Hour then either. So then that brings us into May. So it looks like May 3rd is probably our next Power Hour. So thanks everybody for coming. Over and out.